Thoughts from the Mount of Blessing. The spirituality of the law. Except your righteousness shall exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, ye shall in no case enter into the kingdom of heaven. Matthew 5, verse 20. The scribes and Pharisees had accused not only Christ, but his disciples as sinners because of their disregard of the rabbinical rites and observance. Often the disciples had been perplexed and troubled by censure and accusation from those whom they had been accustomed to revere as religious teachers. Jesus unveiled the deception. He declared that the righteousness upon which the Pharisees set so great value was worthless. This Jewish nation had claimed to be the special, loyal people who were favored of God, but Christ represented their religion as devoid of saving faith. All their pretensions of piety, their human inventions and ceremonies, and even their boasted performance of the outward requirements of the law could not avail to make them holy. They were not pure in heart or noble and Christ-like in character. A legal religion is insufficient to bring the soul into harmony with God. The hard, rigid orthodoxy of the Pharisees, destitute of contrition, tenderness, or love, was only a stumbling block to sinners. They were like the salt that had lost its savor, for their influence had no power to preserve the world from corruption. The only true faith that is that which worketh by love, Galatians 5 verse 6, to purify the soul. It is as leaven that transforms the character. All this the Jews should have learned from the teachings of the prophets. Centuries before, the cry of the soul for justification with God had found voice and answer in the words of the prophet Micah. Wherewith shall I come before the Lord, and bow myself before the high God? Shall I come before him with burnt offerings, with calves or of a year old? Will the Lord be pleased with thousands of rams, or with 10,000s of rivers of oil? He hath showed thee, O man, what is good, and what doth the Lord require of thee, but to do justly, and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with thy God. Micah 6 verse 6 through 8. The prophet Hosea had pointed out that constitutes the very essence of Pharisaism in the words, Israel is an empty vine, he bringeth forth fruit unto himself. Hosea 10 verse 1. In their professed service to God, the Jews were really working for self. Their righteousness was the fruit of their own efforts to keep the law according to their own ideas and for their own selfish benefit. Hence, it could be no better than they were. In their endeavor to make themselves holy, they were trying to bring a clean thing out of an unclean. The law of God is as holy as he is holy, as perfect as he is perfect. It presents to men the righteousness of God. It is impossible for man of himself to keep this law, for the nature of man is depraved, deformed, and wholly unlike the character of God. The works of the selfish heart are as an unclean thing, and all our righteousness are as filthy rags. Isaiah 64 verse 6. While the law is holy, the Jews could not attain righteousness by their own efforts to keep the law. The disciples of Christ must obtain righteousness of a different character from that of the Pharisees, if they would enter the kingdom of heaven. God offered them in his Son the perfect righteousness of the law. If they would open their hearts fully to receive Christ, then the very life of God, is his love, would dwell in them, transforming them into his own likeness, and thus through God's free gift they would possess the righteousness which the law requires. But the Pharisees rejected Christ, being ignorant of God's righteousness and going about to establish their own righteousness. Romans 10 verse 3. They will not submit themselves unto the righteousness of God. Jesus proceeded to show his hearers what it means to keep the commandments of God, that it is a reproduction in themselves of the character of Christ. For in him God was daily made manifest before them. The end. Please join us in the next chapter. Have a great day.